Okay, so I made my first video yesterday. Hi, my name is Mark Deary, if you have never seen one of my videos. But yeah, this is my second video and I probably still don't know what I'm doing and I have no idea if what I'm saying makes sense or something people would want to watch, but I've got a good story. So yesterday I shot my first YouTube video and it was basically an introduction talking about what I plan to do over the next 100 days with this channel. I'm going to try and make a video every day. And yeah, I came home, I'd recorded it fine. At some point I'll show you the camera that I'm filming on, but I'm filming on a probably far too advanced camera for what I'm doing with this stuff. But it's the camera I have available, so I'm shooting on it. It's an Arri Alexa. And yeah, so I brought the card home, was really excited, thought I'd done an okay job, filming the scene. And I went to put the card into the codecs reader and it wouldn't mount. And I was like, no. And I did have a backup, like I'm recording simultaneously into like a separate recorder. So I had a backup, it was really low resolution. And I was a bit, reluctant to want to just go straight to using that because it's really pixelated and low quality. It's like a recording of the monitor. And so I thought, this is okay. It's just not mounting. Like my other card was mounting. So I've just got to try and get it to work. So I thought today, following the path of this story, that I'd talk about when is a good time to persist and how much time should you put into something, and when is a good time to just call it quits or give up or move on or do something else. And creatively, this is something that comes up all the time. Like for any kind of creative person, you know that eventually after a while, after kind of the initial honeymoon period where you just want to do things all the time, you eventually have options and you have to kind of choose one thing over another or decide, okay, if I'm going to commit to this one project, will I stick with this one project for ages or will I do some other project, or will I do a bunch of small projects? And whatever you choose, it's kind of, you can do this thing and you can't do that thing. And when you decide to work on a big project, especially something like a feature film, you kind of know that you're going to be giving up a large chunk of your life to that project. But it can be with small projects as well, like the video that I shot yesterday. It's like, okay, I want to salvage this footage. Candice, my wife, said to me, just go shoot it again. And I was like, oh, but it was my first one, it was the actual first one, I'll try and save it. And so, finishing that story, basically what I decided that I needed to do was try to reinstall macOS, because since I got it, to rip the cards that this camera uses, they're called codecs cards, and they work through I use an old Mac Pro, like an old 2012 Mac Pro, and it has a special card in it that goes into a special reader, and the special reader can read the cards. So since I got it, I've always just kind of gone with the first thing that worked for me. I was in too much of a rush and I had other things on, so I didn't have time to really sit down and try and make it on the newest version, using all the new features and stuff. So I was using an old version of macOS Sierra, so from a few years back now, probably about 17 or 18, I don't remember the exact year. But yeah, I was like, I know that it can be used on a newer macOS, and for editing I use a newer Mac, but to rip the cards I just need this old Mac Tower just to rip the footage. And so I thought, well, I've wanted to do this anyway, so it's okay if I put a bit of time in to like try to update the macOS and still make the card reader work. So they're okay. So, and anyone who's done this before knows that erasing and installing a new operating system is something that kind of takes a lot of time. Like it's a lot of waiting. You kind of see it and you have to wait 30 minutes and then you'll set up a USB stick, takes another however long, like to download, then you set up the USB stick, then you boot, and there's a lot of steps involved. And it takes a long time. So I knew I was up for a fair bit of time going from one OS to one, something like 8 or 9 OSs later. And yeah, so I don't know, when I got home yesterday afternoon from filming about 4 or 5 o'clock, and we had dinner and had to do a bunch of other things. So I did a little bit of sitting down with it. And yeah, I kind of came and went. Like I had dinner and I watched a movie with Candice and, did the things I would usually do every day, put the kids to bed. And I ended up being up decently late. I was up till about 2 a.m. doing setup, and I still didn't finish. So I went to bed last night at 2 a.m., woke up this morning, kept working on it, and the time now, I don't actually know what it is, about 4 o'clock maybe? It's 5:02 in the afternoon now, so I've been working on it all day. So I basically spent, I don't know, I'd have to be up to 12 hours at least working on it now. And I've made progress. Like I got the drivers of the card, the firmware updated, and I got the card reader working on an OS, 2 OSs newer. So now I can use like compression with the raw files and stuff. So, I've made a bit of progress, but it's still going. Literally as we speak, I'm making another USB stick for it. So will I eventually get it to work? I don't know. Meanwhile, while I was waiting today, I realized that I could actually play back through the camera because the card was still working in the camera perfectly fine. So I could still play back the files in the camera, and I could set the output of the camera to give like a high quality 1080p feed. So I realized, okay, I can save this footage. I don't have to use the pixelated proxies. I can just use this. Now at that point, I probably could have just given up because I still have a working machine with the old OS and the old card reader. I've never had a problem. This is the first time it's ever stuffed up. I think that'll be a story for another day. Like Murphy's Law, everything that can go wrong will go wrong. But yeah, apart from it not working that time, like now I have the footage working so I can get it. And hopefully, well, if you're seeing this, which is my second video, you will have seen my first video. So after this, I'll go and salvage the footage using that manual technique because it looks like I'm not going to be able to get the card working, but maybe I will. Maybe if I get the OS working. But this leads you to the question, do you give up? Like, should I have given up on bothering, installing a new OS? As soon as I found that alternative, like, oh, I can get a high quality thing from this, move on to the next thing. Is quality for these YouTube videos really that important? Like, it's my first one. Is it really important that it's that great? Like, does it need to be shot on a Arri Alexa, which is what they use to shoot, famous feature films? Anyone who doesn't know about filmmaking who's watching this, it was used on things like James Bond and I don't know, a bunch of very famous movies. You can look it up. It's an Arri Alexa XT. Just Google what was shot on Arri Alexa XT. A lot of famous movies. And so it doesn't need to be used to shoot these YouTube videos. No, but it's just the camera I have available to me at the moment. I guess I could use my phone, but this is what I've set up. Anyway, so I've got a solution. I could quit. Should I quit? I haven't yet. I'm still working on it now. At what point will I quit? I'm 12 hours in. I'm in a special kind of situation, I guess, because like I said in my first video, I'm on leave at the moment. So I have a bit of time, and it's something that was on my list. So I can kind of justify, I can give this a few hours. I can give this a bit of time. And I guess there are always factors that come into play of when you decide, should I quit or should I persevere? And right now I'm persevering because I would like to know I could use the newest version of it if I can get it working. But at the same time, I'm kind of like, I could just erase the card with the footage once I back it up and then move on and use it as I was using it before for all the other projects I've shot on this camera, where it was perfectly fine. I think it was just a one-off, random anomaly error in the card because it was my first video that I shot. Okay, so let's go from there and talk about other things. So in my first video yesterday, I spoke about how my wife and I have worked on 5 feature films together, but we only ever finished 3. The other 2 projects got very close to being finished, or one never got finished, it never got through production. It got kind of rained out, and there's a lot of reasons why it didn't get done, and I'll talk about that another day, or in my Confessions of a Failed Filmmaker documentary that I'm starting working on since yesterday. But the other one, we got very close to being done. We had equipment, we had actors, we recorded a lot of ADR because we shot it all at night. So the shoot was only 6 days. Back in 2005, November 2005, we shot it. And I think it was edited, Candice edited it in maybe a couple of days, two, maybe 3 days for the initial edit. And then, we did some refinements and stuff. But then we brought the actors in to do ADR and we did the ADR. So the only thing that never got done on that film was the audio mixing and the score. And I guess we just kind of moved on with our lives. Like other things came up. We moved from, we were in Maryborough, Queensland with our parents, and we ended up moving to Melbourne. So that happened. And then, I was doing my master's degree in film, and so then I was working on other film projects, and I just kind of never came back to it. So I could still come back to it, but I guess we kind of just accepted that it was never going to be a great film, and we'd kind of gotten what we wanted to get out of it. So I'll probably use some of that footage in my Confessions of a Failed Filmmaker documentary, but I don't know if we consciously decided it was never going to get done, or we just reached a point where it wasn't done and thought, okay, we've moved on to other projects. But yeah, I think when it comes to creative projects, sometimes you think, well, the thing that I was into that with, I'm no longer into, or, whatever incentive I had before is now outweighed by some massive negative, or I've just expended more time than I'm willing to expend in this. There's an amazing book, which I highly recommend if you haven't read it or heard of it, by Elizabeth Gilbert, who wrote Eat, Pray, Love, called Big Magic. Great book where she talks about ideas coming to you and then disappearing, and sometimes it's the right idea, but you shouldn't hold on to ideas, you should let them go, because ideas just want to come into life. So an idea will come to you, and there's unlimited ideas in the world. And if they come to you, you can decide to be with it for a while and bring it into the world, birth it into the world, or you can kind of let go of it and say, no idea, you're not the right idea for me right now. And then it can go on and someone else can have the idea. And then they can, because it's the right idea for them. And so I guess for us with those projects, were they close enough to finish that we call them done? I don't know. I don't know if they really came to, fruition. So it's interesting. And with a project like that, when you decide it's something that you don't want to finish, I'm still on the fence. It's still kind of an open loop. It's like Candice, who is a lot more practical than me, would say, no, it's done. You can make something better. Why would you spend time on that old film when you could make something better now? Because we could. We're much more skilled now, and we have other stories we want to tell. We're older now. Back then, we were, I was 23 years old in November of 2005, whereas now I'm 43 years old. So, the story I would tell now would be different. But is it worth finishing so that the world can see it, so the idea can be birthed? Because the people who were in it saw a rough cut of it, which had some audio, like temp audio in it, but we never premiered it. We never released it into the world. And so it's funny because just this year I had a project which I'll talk about in another video, I'm sure, at some point, which I was directing, and it was a theatre project, and we were working on that, and we got very close to the end, but there was just so much politics and random issues that were outside of our control that we decided to pull the plug on that, and it ended up not happening. And that was another thing where it's like really difficult to decide, do we quit or do we persevere? Like is it worth sticking with something beyond a certain point? And I guess this is playing heavily on my mind today. So this is more of me putting thoughts out there really than it is giving advice, which I think is what every video I make is going to be, just me thinking about something, and you can see how you feel about that topic. Because for me, you'll have things that you want to do, or at a time you're like, I have access to free equipment, so now is the time. What project am I going to do? Can I do a project? Yes, okay, I'm going to do it. You make a decision. I'll do another video about decision making another day. But then once you're committing to it, it's like, okay, well, what do I want to get out of this? And I think while what you want to get out of it is still appealing, there's no reason to stop, or to quit, unless something else comes up, like more free equipment or a great location or a dream actor or something else comes up. Then maybe you'd say, okay, I'll come back to that later, or I won't, but I'm going to move on to this other thing because I don't want to lose that opportunity. You also don't want to jump from thing to thing and never finish anything. I mean, I kind of feel lucky because we've finished a lot of projects. For the number that we haven't completed, there are more that we have. When I say we, I mean Candice and I. And I think, I don't know, I guess with little things and with big things, it's always, you kind of have to at some point decide, I am going to finish this, or if I can't finish it, or it's not worth expending any more time. Because this is the thing, I'm not going to spend a week on this issue with the Mac. Like I know, by 2 hours from now, I'll have the footage from yesterday ripped off the card out of the camera at decent quality footage. I'll do the post-production and it'll be online, and you have probably already watched it if you're watching this second video. And then it'll be a question of, well, I'm trying a new OS right now. If that works out and I get it to work, great, but I'm probably not going to spend any more than a couple of hours. Like tomorrow, I'll just use what I already had and what was working. So, I guess there's a book by Daniel Kahneman called Thinking Fast and Slow. And there are other books as well that talk about like mental models where they talk about like the sunk cost fallacy. Or this is just one way of thinking where they've put time into something. So you'll put, I'm 12 hours into trying to get this thing working. And it's like, well, I've done 12 hours. What's 14? What's 18? What's, I can do 3 days. I've done 2 days. What's 3? What's 4? And I think a lot of projects, people will be like, well, I've done this. Like you'll have some red flag. I'm working for 11 years in film production. I absolutely took way longer, like longer than any person would ever take. There's a great video by Ira Glass, which has nothing to do with what I'm talking about now, but in the video, Ira Glass, he talks about how he took a really long time. He said like 8 years or something to get good at radio, where he's like, I'm good. Like, I know what good radio sounds like, and here's my, ability. Like my taste is up here and my ability is here. And as his ability got better little by little by little, like he said, it took him 8 years, he got to the point where what he wanted to do matched his taste. He could make what was his taste. And I'm just talking about that saying, I did 11 years of film, but the number of times I would say yes to a client, or a client would instantly a red flag, and I'd still say, yes, I'll do the job for you, and I'm like, this job's going to be terrible. Like I knew, like before even meeting them, like from their initial email, but you'd take the work because I needed the money, or, you'd be like, oh, there might not be another job, or I've got time now, or, oh, it could be interesting. You justify it to yourself, even though you have those red flags. And I think learning to listen to a red flag, knowing I've sunk enough into this, like the sunk cost fallacy is a thing. Don't waste any more time in this, like all people staying invested in an investment or whatever. It's the same sort of principle where you're like, oh, it's sinking now. Oh, I better stay until it gets big again, instead of just selling before you lose more, Say, oh, keep going. And then before you know it, it's nothing. So I think factoring that into your thinking when you make a decision, should I persevere or not, is definitely something that, as I've gotten older, I find easier. When I was young, I think it was easy to kind of just be like, oh, I'll just keep going. Oh, it'll be all right. It'll be all right. Whereas I guess you get older and you realize you probably don't have as much time as you used to. So maybe it makes sense that, you know, you're less likely to be willing to give time to something when you have higher priorities or whatever. And as I say right now, it's like, this is something I'd wanted to do for a while. So I can go, yeah, I can give that a bit of time if it takes a while. But when it gets to a certain point, it'll be like, no, I have higher priorities for my time. I'm not going to spend 3 weeks trying to get this thing working. Like, it'll work or it won't. So, but yeah, that's what I've been thinking about. So hopefully my yesterday's video will go live. And for today's video, yeah, I guess talking about getting you watching, like if you've watched this far, I'm glad you did. You're probably thinking, why did I watch this video for so long? But I'd be interested to know in the comments what you think of, you know, if you've got any special techniques of like when you knew you should have quit something. It's like, it's been long enough. I should have quit this thing, you know, and you didn't, or you did. Like, what made you know that you did? When it comes to film projects or when it comes to any kind of project, how do you know when it's time to quit? I haven't even talked about jobs. Like, I have had a few jobs in my life where they were just terrible jobs. And I always prided myself for a long time on being in a job. And like, as soon as I knew that it was bad, I would quit, you know, and I've had jobs where it's like, it was terrible. One day I remember Candice had been telling me to quit it for quite a while. This was back in 2007. I was working in a law firm and she'd been telling me for a while, like, dude, you're unhappy. I've never seen you like this. You need to quit this job. And then one day something happened. I was just like, nah, that, you know, I can't work here anymore. And so I called her up and said, hey, I'm going to quit. Is that all right? She's like, yep. And I quit instantly. And I think as I've gotten older as well, because we have kids now and responsibilities, I'm probably less likely to make such an instant decision. But I think it's the best way to go. So I think that's probably what I would comment on my own video, that you know, it was easier to quit things when I had less responsibilities. As you have more responsibilities, it's a bit harder. And so you do a lot more mental, or spend more time ruminating than just making a decision. And that's probably, I guess, a waste of time as well. But anyway, this is something I think about a lot lately, is how much is a good amount of time to put into something after you realize it's probably not going to be good, if it can be finished, and is the payoff worth it? How do you make that decision? And so I'd be interested to see what you guys think of when you should quit versus when you should persevere. Okay, I think I'm going to wrap it up there. I could probably talk about it for a lot longer, but that's me waxing lyrical for the day on the thing that I've been thinking about, because my files did not work out the way I hoped they would. Hopefully this video will be very quick to copy, and I'll let you know in tomorrow's video. All right, thanks so much. As I said yesterday, I'm just beginning after having my YouTube channel for 16 years. I'm only starting now to release content regularly. So I'm interested in building a community. If you want to see what I'm saying and talk with me in the comments, then subscribe, like the video if you got to the end. And yep, I'm looking forward to more conversations and thinking like this. All right, thanks everyone.